Shalom, giving all praises to Yahweh, Bashem El Shai, Bashem Rakakodah, Shalom to the 144,000 and the rest of the elect out there. Shalom to you all. What's the difference between what I say in my intro compared to Genesis? They don't praise the name of the Father and the Son. I believe they don't even believe in it anymore. They question it or just threw it in the garbage. Yeah, man, we're not going to follow anything that has to do with One West. So the One West camps, they all teach that the name of the Most High is Yahweh and the Son's name is Yahweh Shai. Even IUIC, which they don't say it too much. But if you notice, when these guys change that doctrine, I noticed something that they don't say the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. They'll probably say Most High, they'll say Christ. Now, being that I said that, I'm pretty sure they'll probably start calling on the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai because of the fact that I'm making a statement about them. Because that's what I noticed. And I may even go into that. Excuse me. Forgive me for that. Anyway, I'm gonna entitle this video, "What's the GMS take on Isaiah 14:4?" Or I may just put in, I asked the chat, what's the GMS Israelites take on Isaiah 14:4, which I will wind up most likely doing is going to maybe the second verse or maybe even starting at the first verse, and I'll attempt to see if I can break down this whole chapter. But I want to deal with certain verses. I want to go to the actual chat GPT, just to see what their take is, and I'm asking GMS. I'll say okay, so GMS Great Millstone Israelite view of Isaiah 14:4 is very specific and differs from mainstream Jewish and Christian interpretations. Isaiah 14:4, and I'm definitely going to have to get into verse 2, verse 3, and verse 1 is pretty much self-explanatory. Anyway, Isaiah 14:4 speaks about taking up a proverb against the king of Babylon, describing the fall of an oppressive ruler and the end of his domination. GMS interpretation summary: GMS teaches that the king of Babylon is not ancient Babylon only. They believe it is a prophetic symbol of a future end times power, not just a historical king. Remember, the Bible is written in code, allegories, symbolism. Double talk. And the ones that are able to break it down are the ones that the Most High opened up their spiritual eyes and gave them the Holy Spirit, the comforter, to see these things. That's why these Christians come up against mainly the One Westers, former One Westers, because there's different Israelite groups out there, the Israelites and so forth. Vocab doesn't go after them because they say Gentiles can make it and this, that, and the third. And his focus is on the former One Westers, because we all say the same thing, that we are the people, number one, and in our kingdom we're going to have slaves. And the number one slave that we're going to have our feet on their neck. The number one nation is Edom, the Edomites. That's in Psalms 83 and from the first verse. First nation that list of nations, the first nation it mentions is Esau, the Edomites. The second is Ishmael. It says in GMS doctrine, Babylon represents the final global empire they identify with modern Western power structures, especially the U.S. and its allies. The proverb is a taunt against modern oppressors. Modern oppressors. Because we're being oppressed, man. These prices have gone up on everything, and wages are not going up. Got countless video after video after video of men, women, Edomite men, Jake women, that when they work at a job, they can barely pay all the bills, and once they get the bills out of the way, they have to decide whether they're going to do something on the weekend or stay in, or whether they're going to, you're going to have to cut a lot of things. And this is set up to destroy the middle class and the low and the middle class on down, the middle class to the little class. And then it's affecting even Edomites that do pretty well. They got to foreclose on their house. Their houses get foreclosed on. Try to sell their houses, and 6 months down the road, a year down the road, they can't sell the house. So it's a what do you call it? A money pit, a money trap. The American dream was to buy a house, but what gets you? Well, wages don't go up. Everything else goes up. Property taxes always go up. The value of the house goes down, so it's harder to sell it. So, we're not the ones just being oppressed. Everybody pretty much is being oppressed. Esau is feeling it the most because they used to being on top. It says Isaiah 14:4 is read as a future victory song that Israelites, there it goes, that Israelites, as they define themselves. Yeah, we're not the Israelites, but they think that they're the Israelites. Come on now. We'll speak after the downfall of the system. The oppressor. That's why I got to go in the second verse of this chapter, because Genesis and Divine Prospects believe that Obadiah 1:18. It's poetic, it's symbolic. It doesn't mean we're going to actually burn up all Edomites. Okay, we'll go with that. We don't get to destroy Edomites, but we'll get to kick their asses forever. Now I'll take that too. We're gonna burn, and well, anyway, that's a whole nother topic. Yeah, these guys, they want to bend over backwards for Edomites to make it. Like good house niggas. We sick. He loved the master more than the master loved himself. Yeah, these guys love the master more than the master loved himself. Their goal or their mission is to save Esau. We got to get Esau in the kingdom. We got to get him in the kingdom. If we can get one of them in there, we get all of them in there. And the hell with Jake. So you can know, I'm a little all over the place. Please forgive me. They have a new channel, TCL, TLC, whatever, which I subscribe to, just to get notifications on their videos, just to listen to the madness, and to comment on the madness, do counter videos. Anyway, and they're done. They're done. Genesis is done. Genesis means the beginning. The beginning of what? The beginning of the end for them. It says the oppressor, I'm right here, downfall of this system. So the king of Babylon is more of a system than one man. Although they have one front man, which is Nero Redivivos. He's no longer Nero 47. He's Nero Redivivos. You look that word up there, you know what I'm talking about. You got to put in the term, not redivivos, but Nero redivivos, and you know what I'm talking about. It said the oppressor and Golden City are interpreted as economic, political, and military dominance exercised over the world. Well, you see them down there in South America, stopping ships from going. Actually, them oil ships are going to China. Them oil ships are going to China because China has a deal with Venezuela to get oil, so he wants to stop that. That's the real reason. And somebody had said it, which makes sense. Let's go ahead and look at this. Let's look at the silver prices anyway. Okay, silver is almost $70. Never been this high in the history of silver. Never been this high. Talking about doing the gold standard. Oh, look at that. It's $70. Is it a good time to buy? Yes, it's a good time to buy because it's going to go up, in my humble opinion. In my somewhat knowledge of this commodity, it will go up. I clearly don't see it going down. You see? Look at this. That's 40 cents. And that'll be breaking news today if you go on your financial channels. Anyway, I'm sorry. Let me come over here. I don't want to go there. Give me a second. Okay, I was watching this. I want to go to the Google. Now, this is the question that I want to ask. Does China and Venezuela have an oil deal going? Yes, there it goes. This is why Nero Redivivos is blocking these ships because those ships are being sent from Venezuela to China. He wants to block it and take it over. They're pretty much saying that that's a part. A couple of weeks ago, the breaking news was there's a new doctrine. It's kind of like an update to the what do you call it? The Monroe Doctrine. It's called the Trump Doctrine. And I'll go into it in a minute. So I asked the question: does China and Venezuela have an oil deal going? Yes, China and Venezuela have a significant, long-standing oil relationship. So basically, Nero wants to block that. With China being a major buyer of Venezuelan crude, often using complex payment methods like stablecoins to bypass U.S. Ooh, I didn't know that. I mean, I had an idea. So they're not. That goes back to. This opens up a whole another subject that goes into your what do you call it? World reserve currency. Your world reserve currency today, yesterday, last year, since 1945, after World War II, was the U.S. dollar. Before that, it was the British pound. So it went from Britain at the end of World War II. They had I believe the conference was the Bretton Woods Conference. I'll go to that in a minute, or not. It says in both countries. So they're using other methods for China to pay Venezuela outside of converting it to the U.S. dollar, which is also known as the petrodollar. And both countries, the deepening strategic energy and economic ties through various agreements, despite U.S. pressure and tanker seizures. Because the last one that they seized on the ship, the flagship was the flag on the ship not a flagship. Flagship is the lead ship. It had Panama, but they knew that, oh, this is a Venezuelan oil, but it's being shipped to China under the Panamanian flag, which is a neighbor. Okay, so this acts like this is gonna definitely lead to the downfall of this place by. Remember, China, Venezuela, and China are allies to Russia. You can look it up. Don't take my word for it. So that's where in the news, right? How this 17 hours ago, how U.S. oil tanker seizures targeting Venezuela are linked to rising geopolitical. I'll read some of this. Rising to geopolitical tensions with China. I'm not going to read any more. Let's bring this back. China blasts U.S. China blasts. So China's mad. China blasts. 15 hours ago. China blasts U.S. seizure of Venezuelan oil tankers. This is the real reason why Nero is doing what he's doing. It has nothing to do with drugs. Real money is in oil. China blasts U.S. seizure of Venezuelan oil tankers, grossly violates international laws. Of course, absolutely. That's why ultimately, this Nero's gonna isolate Babylon from the rest of the planet, and the ones that possess missiles ultimately will shoot their missiles on this place and destroy it forever. Okay, so I'm not going to stay on this. Let's come back over here. See, we felt the main thing that we get into is prophecy, rather that ye prophesy. Be occupied in prophecy. Ecclesiasticus 39, if I'm not mistaken. I'm positive. Okay, it says ethnic national reading. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not even a part of the information. Oh, it is. I'm sorry. It is. It's an ethnic national reading. Did I read this? Golden City sees interpreting dominance exercise over the world. Right. That's the word is hegemony. Hegemony. Bully on the block. They say, wait a minute. You Venezuela is sending oil tankers to China, and they're not giving us. They're not converting the yuan or the Venezuelan dollar. They're not converting it to U.S. dollars, and that's what they're supposed to do. So they're saying, no, we're not converting it. We're using other methods to pay for it. And China's mad. And remember, China's a major ally to the former USSR. It says GMS teaches that biblical Israelites today are primarily so-called Black, Latino, and Native American people. The fall described in Isaiah 14 is seen as Israel's restoration, Amos 9, and the loss of power of their enemies, the beast system. Linked to verses later in Isaiah 14, they often connect verse 4 with latter verses, like verses 12 to 15. We're going to try to cover the whole. We try to do it over the weekend. It says teaching that the same symbolic power is being addressed throughout the chapter. Right, this is the golden city. Oh, wait a minute. The golden city, right? This man, when he became president, what's the term? I think it's called a golden era. It says how this differs from mainstream views, mainstream scholarship. Isaiah 14 is usually understood as a satirical poem against an actual Babylonian king, later reused symbolically. Okay, oh boy. GMS reads it almost entirely as end time prophecy, not primarily history or as history. You know what I'm going to do? GMS reads it almost entirely as end time prophecy. This is what I'm going to do. Okay, where are we? I'm sorry. I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna go right here. Bring this back. Here we go again. DW, this is a German news company. Venezuelan oil. China says U.S. violating international law. The Guardian. Russia and China pledge support for Russia and China pledge support for Venezuela as Trump ratchets up pressure. He'll be the guy that ushers in this destruction, we believe. He's the front man anyway. Okay, let me see. Let me do it this way. Is Isaiah 14 and end time prophecy. Yes, many Christians. Now let me come back over here. Let me do this. Take this and put this over here. Filter everything through the scriptures. It says GMS reads it almost entirely as end time prophecy, not primary history. I just went to Google. It's Isaiah 14 and end time prophecy. No, Isaiah is Isaiah 14 and end time prophecy. Not a end time prophecy. It says, yes, many Christian interpretations see Isaiah 14 as having a dual fulfillment, addressing both the historical Babylonian kings. When you read Isaiah 14, the whole chapter, you'll see that it's not talking about the Neo-Babylonian Empire like Nebuchadnezzar, because it was one nation that took down the Babylonian rulership. It was the Medes. It was Darius that gave the order. And it was a surgical strike. I said this before. And a future ultimate king of Babylon. Now they're saying Antichrist. There was no Antichrist back there. There's no Antichrist now. The Antichrist is a spirit. It's a state of mind. An Antichrist figure in the end times, representing Satan's ultimate rebellion against the Most High, especially verses 12 to 14, describing Lucifer's fall. Now, Esau doesn't understand words. As soon as they hear Lucifer, excuse me, they think of a devil in a red suit with a long tail, with a point at the end, with a trident in his hand. That's the actual devil. No, Lucifer just means what? Light bearer. Esau is the bearer of the light. We're going to be the new bearer of the light. Yahweh Shai is the bearer of the light that's going to give us that light. When you go to all nations, they'll flow into it. They're going to flow into the new Lucifer. Lucifer is not a bad word. Lucifer is a good word. Lucifer sounds like a a warlock. Tar said he's a witch. He said Lucifer's a Lucifer just means light bearer. Whoever has the light, that's where the power is. That's where you go to. While its initial context is Israel's restoration and the fall of Little Babylon fulfilled in history, the language of pride and divine downfall. Divine downfall points for divine downfall. Darius giving the order, the Mede giving the order out to slit this guy's throat and his laws is not divine downfall. Divine downfall is when the angels come, Yahushua come. Divine downfall points forward to an eschatological end times. That's what escha means the end of something. The study of the end, meaning the end of time. Ruler and ultimate evil. This man is ultimate evil, man. The whole world sees that. A common prophetic pattern in Isaiah where history mirrors future events. So they're telling you in Google that this is a future event. GMS reads it almost entirely. Almost. Completely as end time prophecy, not primary history. It says, important note, this explanation describes what GMS teaches, not an endorsement for their theology. Their interpretations are highly disputed and are not accepted by Jewish scholarship, historical, critical, biblical studies, or more like theological cemeteries. And remember, Divine Prospect, he said it himself. I heard the other day, some years ago, he said he was trained pretty much as he did. I don't know if he graduated. I don't know what his degrees are, but he spent several years at a theological cemetery. I call it cemetery. On most Christian denominations. If you want, I can also compare GMS mainstream Christian versus mainstream Christian interpretation verse by verse. Explain how other Israelite groups interpret Isaiah 14, break down the Hebrew terms used in Isaiah 14 and 4. You know what? Let me try this. Let's see what this says. Below is a neutral overview of how other Israelite identified groups outside of GMS commonly interpret Isaiah 14, especially in context of GMS. This is descriptive, not an endorsement. Mainstream Jewish, I don't want to know that. I don't need all of this. Okay, so let's look at this. Other Israelite groups, non-GMS camps, IUIC, ICPK, Sakari, adjacent groups, etc. Core view, Isaiah 14 is still prophetic, but interpretations vary. Difference from GMS, some limit Babylon more narrowly. Example, Europe and Rome, they're going off. Babylon is the U.S., America. Some emphasize spiritual oppression, not just political. Less emphasis or less extreme emphasis on future taunting or domination. Common ground, Israel's future restoration, fall of oppressive system, end of captivity themes. Because certain Israelites want this man to go on forever. Or if the kingdom comes, they want the Edomite to put crowns on their head. He loved the master more than the master loved himself. Mainstream Christians' interpretation for comparisons. I don't need that. Okay, key takeaway. Most Israelite-related groups see Isaiah 14 as grounded in history first, with a symbolic or moral meaning second. GMS is unique, and making it almost entirely, no, we make it entirely about modern geopolitics and future judgment tied to their specific identity doctrine. Let me see, compare Isaiah 14 with Jeremiah 50 and 51. Chapters 50 and 51. We went through 50. We got to go through 51. Walk through Isaiah 14 verse by verse across groups. Let me see. Let me do this here. Let me do this here. Bear with me for a minute, y'all. Prophecies. Hermeneutics. Eschatology, whatever you want to call it. Futurists. We're also futurists. Okay, what is the GMS Israelites' take on Let me go to 2. Below is a neutral explanation of how GMS Great Millstone Israelites interpret Isaiah 14 and 2, describing their teaching, not endorsing it. Isaiah 14 and 2 summary verse. The verse says the nations will take Israel and bring them back to their land, and that Israel will possess them, and former captors become servants. GMS interpretation of Isaiah 14 and 2, literal future reversal of power. I like that term, reversal of power. GMS teaches that Isaiah 14 and 2 describes a literal end-time reversal. Israelites, as GMS defines them, are currently at the bottom of the world power. You got damn right. In the future kingdom, their oppressors, it starts with the super elite among the Edomites and even among the other nations, these nations that are members of the UN that plot against us. That's in Psalms 83. And you know, all Edomites, I mean the poor Edomite, the middle class, lower class, bum ass Edomite, they're going to suffer the same punishment as the elite among Esau. And they know that they're the Edomites. In the future kingdom, their oppressors will be brought into subjection. They read this as actual national domination, not symbolism. Right, we're going to rule, it says rule over their oppressors. It said the people, non-Israelite nations, according to GMS, the people in the house of Israel are ethnic Israelites only. Strangers and nations are non-Israel. In the first verse, when it says strangers, it's talking about Israelites. I'm not going to go all into it. And this is where Hassad goes off on when he says, when he reads Isaiah 14 and 1, when it says strangers, he said those are the other, no, they're not the other nations. If you did a little digging, go to the root of the word in the Hebrew, you would find out that it's talking about Israelites. Before you woke up to this truth, you were considered spiritually labeled a stranger, because this was strange to you. These nations will help return Israel to the land, then become servants and handmaids under Israel's rule. Let me do this. Okay. 3. Captivity as punishment. GMS frames this as divine justice. Other nations enslaved Israel in the past. Isaiah 14:2 is read as payback ordained by the Most High. They often connect this with verses like Isaiah 33:1, beautiful verse. When thou shalt cease to spoil, thou shalt be spoiled. But who are you going to be spoiled by? The other nations that possess missiles. Deuteronomy 30, restoration after curses. Right. In the 7th verse of Deuteronomy 30, it says they're going to suffer the same punishment that we suffered under them. And we are going to be the punishers. No spiritualization, Unlike many other groups, GMS rejects his symbolic or moral interpretations. They insist that the verse means real hierarchy, meaning we're going to be on the top, they're going to be on the bottom. Real servitude, they're going to be our slaves. Real geopolitical dominance, we're going to rule the world. Edomites are not going to be standing around with their hands in their pocket. Oh, just leave them Edomites alone. They really didn't do nothing to y'all. And they believed that the Messiah is so-called black. And they were following the laws. And they went out there in the highways, and Edomites on the highways in the Bible with the 12 tribes sign. So leave them alone. Leave them alone. Don't mess with them. Don't meet Edomites over there. You can do whatever you want with them. That's not going to happen in the kingdom. They're all going to be down. Their faces are going to be to the ground. And our boots are going to be on their necks. And here comes the axe straight down their backs. Inside joke. It says they also reject the idea that this refers to conversion or peaceful cooperation. No. First and foremost, this place is going to be destroyed by missiles. And it's starting, man. The Chinese and the Russians they're communicating. Trust me, you got the Chinese, the Russians, and Venezuela. They're communicating. They're on the phone talking, man. And if it gets hot and heavy, they will send Chinese and Russian ships. That can cause World War III, Armageddon. And at the same time, over there in the Middle East, all hell is going to break loose. Now, Tucker Carlson came to the camp in 2014, and he kept saying, but why am I going into slavery? Why am I going into slavery? And I said, well, if you're an Edomite, you're going into slavery. If you're not an Israelite, you're not going to slavery. And it hurt. And you can hear the way he said it, that he was concerned. Yeah, because who wants to go into slavery? You know, who's going to accept it? You get a free trip for 2 years. You're going to go into slavery. On The Price is Right. You're going into slavery. You think they're going to accept that gift? That's not a gift. That's a punishment. It says connection to the kingdom. GMS teaches this happens after divine judgment during the establishment of the Most High's kingdom on earth. Yes, as it is in heaven, so shall it be on the earth. That's the Lord's Prayer. It says, with Israelites ruling and other nations subordinated, this is often paired with Isaiah 14:1, which they read as the setup of Israel's exaltation. How this differs from other interpretations, rabbinic. Now the rabbis, they say they're going to put everybody in slavery too. That's what they teach. They said often reads this as poetic language about restored honor, not permanent enslavement. Well, the second verse tells you that. Let me see. GMS take is a literal, ethnic, and future focused. Important note: this explanation is descriptive. GMS teachers on Isaiah 14:2 are highly controversial, rejected by mainstream Jewish scholars and most Christian theology. Of course, because they don't want to go into slavery. No, it's not just a spiritual slavery. You're just going to teach us the laws, and that's it. You're not going to do nothing. Well, it's all throughout the scriptures. It says compared Isaiah 14 versus Isaiah 49 or 60. Beautiful. Cross groups. Beautiful. Explain the Hebrew words for servant and handmaids. And we'll do that. Servant and handmaids and also oppressor. Show how often Israelite camp disagree with GMS on this verse. The one Westers teach the same thing, pretty much. Okay, so let me pull out some words. We almost done. For Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel. And this is getting ready to happen. He's bringing the two kingdoms together and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined unto them. Those are also Israelites with them. And they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. The people shall take them and bring them to their place. In the house of Israel, the Israelites, the two kingdoms coming together as one, shall possess. And that's when the new covenant comes in. New covenant comes in when the two kingdoms come together. Them in the land of Yahweh for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, and whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. So let's take some words out, and I'm gonna get ready to close. I'll come back. Okay, servants. Let's look up the word servant. So who's gonna be servants? The other nations. Number one on the list is Esau. So let's look up the word servant, handmaids, captives, and oppressors. Bring them to their place in the house of Israel. The Israelites shall possess, own, keep, take, lock down, tie up. Let's look up the word servants. The word there is ibad. Slave, servant, man, servant, subjects, servants, worshipers of God, servant. Okay, these are what okay, look, bond servant, bondage, bondmen, men servant, servants. Talking about slaves. We tell you what to do and you do it. If you don't move fast enough, we kick you in your ass. Overseers, taskmasters that will report to us. See, these other nations will be more like vassals, but Esau is going to be serfs. Definitely, they're going to be the serfs of the lot. Okay, servants and handmaids. Let's look up the word handmaids. The word there is shabacha, shabacha, shabaka. Handmaid, maid, maidservant, bondwoman, maiden, woman servant, handmaidens, bondmaid, servant, wench, wench. In slavery, they called the slave woman, when the master lay with the slave woman, they called her a bed wench. She was a slave just to have sex. You also had what was called fancy girls. Let's look that up. Let's look up. We're going to have fancy girls in the kingdom too. What is meant by fancy girls in slavery? In the context of American slavery, fancy girls was a term used in domestic slave trade to refer to young, often light-skinned enslaved women, which were Israelites, and girls who were bought and sold specifically for forced prostitution and concubinage. This system of sexual exploitation was known as the fancy trade. The fancy trade. Let me do this. There's a lot of good-looking Edomite women out there, man. That we're gonna have them. Now, if you Israelites that don't want them, I ain't dealing with no case. I said you send them over to me. What is meant by the fancy girls in slavery? What is meant by what is meant by the let me put down the fancy trade in slavery? Question mark. And fancy trade was a specific clandestine, secretive, and highly profitable, because what? Sex sells. Sex sells. Profitable segment of the domestic slave trade in the antebellum. This is before the Civil War. This is when they had Jake and slavery. Antebellum United States that focused on the sale of enslaved women and sometimes boys, because those men were laying with boys too. They were bed wenches too. We're not going to do that for the explicit purpose of sexual exploitation, concubinage, and prostitution. So you had slaves that would sell these girls to other Edomites. They would have brothels. Back then, you can have brothels. Let me ask that question. Was it lawful to have brothels in pre-slavery days? I don't know why I said that. The legality of brothels in the era before widespread slavery varied significantly by location and historical period. In ancient times, in colonial societies, brothels were legal, regulated, and often taxed. So whorehouses were legal. You can have a whorehouse. It was like any other business. And what they were selling was a lot of them Edomites. They wanted Jake women, light skinned, and little Jake boys. But we're going to be real nice to these crackers over. No, we're not. No, we're not. Anyway, with that, I may come back. See, now when you do these breakdowns, you gotta really go into every verse. You gotta really get down in the nooks and crannies of this whole thing. Anyway, shalom, on to the next. Shalom.